One of the most important components of any story is conflict. Sometimes this comes from an insurmountable situation, like when I try to choose what I want to eat for dinner, and sometimes it comes from a villain standing in your way. If written well, they can be more than just evil for the sake of it, and can even come across as sympathetic or have a point that you don't necessarily find yourself disagreeing with. Now buckle up and beware spoilers for the games in this list. This is the top 5 video game villains, in my opinion. Number 5. A former soldier first class and old comrade of Cloud Strife, the protagonist from Final Fantasy VII, Sephiroth became twisted and evil and opted to attempt to destroy the world rather than to protect it. This came about after he learned of his origins. His mother was injected with Genova cells while pregnant, and Sephiroth was taken away from her immediately upon being born. This was before his mum could even hold him. Who's Genova, you're asking? Well, she's the big bad cosmic horror looking thing that was found right at the beginning of the game, and it turns out she's not the Sestra that they all thought she was, and is in fact actually really, really bad news. Outside of Final Fantasy, he's had guest appearances in a slew of Japanese games as a playable character, and was an optional boss fight in the Kingdom Hearts franchise, usually yielding some sort of rare and powerful item you could equip to your party. Somehow, even in this small role within the game, he manages to be imposing, menacing, and dangerous enough to make his battles seem important. This one makes the list purely because of the iconic and heartbreaking moment which shocked gamers all over the world. That's right, he was replaced by a boy band in Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. I'm kidding, it's because of his unexpected killing of Aerith and a part of the game that made me pause, open my mouth to say words only for pure shock and despair to instead escape my lips. He killed off the character that was supposed to be the only one that could stop Genova, and he didn't wait until near the end of the game to do it either. As tough a boss fight as he is, and he is bloody tough, it's only one moment that solidified him in gaming history. Number 4. The St. John family aren't the kind of evil that shows itself proudly. They're not the kind of people who even consider themselves as evil, but when it comes down to it, that is exactly what they are. When you first meet them, the two brothers, Andrew and Danny, approach you and offer help. You go with them to their dairy farm and find that it's well fortified with electric fences, and their mother, Brenda, is making their own homemade food, which they're using to strike mutually beneficial deals with other communities that they come across. It seems like a heaven amongst the apocalypse you've been living in for the last few months. Of course, there's a catch. But isn't there always a catch? They're having some problems with a group who keep claiming they had to deal with them. So naturally, after this group injures one of your party, you agree to help them out. You go off to hunt down the people responsible with Danny, and you come across a crazed woman who claims to know what the St. Johns are. But before she can spill the beans, Danny spills her brains. It's a shocker of a moment that clues you in even more to the fact that something's going on with his family. Kenny thinks so too, and you discover before long that these people are cannibals. What's more, they've cooked a lovely meal for the group to chow down on, out of the friend who got injured earlier. And you get there just in time to stop Clementine from eating people meat. See, I told you they were evil. Eventually, you do get to take them down, killing the brothers first and allowing the freshly zombified friend who they partially cooked earlier to get his undead revenge by eating Brenda.
Fatality.
They were a different kind of evil, and they absolutely deserved what they got in the end. Number 3. A baddie so popular with the fans that they had to retcon him back to life in a sequel just so fans could get their fill. Albert Wesker is the original villain from the Resident Evil franchise. From the beginning, he was working with the Umbrella Corporation on their secret bioweapons program and sent off the Raccoon City Police Department's Special Tactics and Rescue Squad in as test subjects for the bioweapons to be trialed against, even though they believe they are there to check out the scene of some grisly murders committed by wild dogs in the Arklay Mountains. Once they lose contact with Bravo Team, Wesker, as leader of the Stars, leads Alpha Team in to rescue them, and so he can see the bioweapons in action. However, things go sideways for him and he ends up getting impaled by the Tyrant 001 prototype that they were working on in the Spencer Mansion labs. But things didn't end there. Like I said, he was popular. So he comes back to reveal himself against Chris Redfield all over again at the Antarctica base in Resident Evil Code Veronica, where his sister Claire is trying to defeat another Umbrella scientist in Alexia Ashford. He shows the fact that his exposure to the T-virus back in the mansion gave him superhuman abilities, and he hands Chris his ass in this fight. It's only because the base is coming down that Chris manages to survive, and we see Wesker escape again. He shows himself to be behind Ada Wong's appearance in Resident Evil 4 as well, as she's there to get him a sample of Las Plagas, and his final appearance comes in Resident Evil 5, where he's the mastermind in all of the goings-on with the Ouroboros virus after he teams up with Umbrella rival Tricell. His big reveal is also coupled with the reappearance of Jill Valentine, who is brainwashed to become his lackey and is now fighting beside him against her old friend Chris. But this is the last time we see Wesker in the franchise, as by the end of the game, after intense fighting that sees Chris punching a boulder, throwing Wesker into a volcano and then blowing him up with a bazooka, it's safe to say that Albert Wesker is no more. Well, for now anyway. It is Resident Evil after all, and they could just retcon him back or make a clone of him or something. Number 2. Far Cry is a series known for its badass crazy villains and dictators that keep main characters on their toes and even getting them to do their bidding. But this one really takes the cake. Joseph Seed is the leader of the Eden's Gate Doomsday cult who's convinced the people of Hope County that he's an instrument of God. He's brainwashed a large portion of the county and turned them into his own holy army, making those that don't follow him too terrified to oppose him. When you start the game, you can see that the man has fierce loyalty from his followers as they attempt to stop you from taking him alive. Instead, they take down your helicopter and kidnap the police who are with you. Then they make their move to completely take over Hope County. Throughout the game, you deal with his family, John Seed, Jacob Seed, and Faith Seed. These are people he has recruited and brainwashed to a point where they would take his name and do his bidding. It turns out, though, that this method of recruiting involves drugging, torture, and brainwashing to the point where his followers forget who they were and see only what Joseph Seed wants them to see. What a lovely bloke, eh? As you take down his family one by one and learn what he put them through, as well as what he inflicted on other people through them, you see him talking up the doomsday prophecy that his cult is built on. He's telling Eden's Gate and you that all you're doing is fulfilling this prophecy. You and all of the people you've helped and rescued return to the Seed compound to attempt the arrest that you tried at the start of the game all over again. You fight Seed on his home turf, surrounded by what's left of his followers and being constantly affected by the bliss drug that he's used to keep his people under control, and finally beat him. You get a great sense of satisfaction as he yields and you cuff him, only for nuclear warheads to launch. Bit of a twist. This apparently happens all over the country, and instead of arresting him, you scramble to escape as Hope County burns around you. The car you're in crashes with all the characters around you screaming and panicking, only for Joseph Seed to drag you off with him. It turns out that he was right, and that makes him even more scary than the bliss hallucinations or the torture he inflicted on you throughout the game. This to me makes him a damn good and scary villain. Number 1, he's arrogant, smarmy and antagonistic, shooting up an entire town when you rescue him from his jail cell. At first, he's just annoying, and Arthur Morgan, the player character, just doesn't like him or want to be around him. But this dislike grows over the game as it appears that you are the only one that doesn't trust him. Slowly but surely, the group that you've been a part of for far longer than Micah has is seemingly turning against you. What's more is that the law, or the Pinkerton Detective Agency, is always hot on your heels and never too far behind to be considered non-threatening. They always seem to know where to find you. All of the while, Micah Bell seems to be getting closer and closer to Dutch, whispering in his ear and turning him against you, convincing him that you don't trust him and making him push you away. By this point in the story, Arthur has contracted tuberculosis and he's dying. During one of the final heists, John Marston gets shot and Dutch goes back to help him. Only once the heist is over, John isn't with him at all and Dutch has told them that he died before he got to him. Micah had convinced him to do this. His final betrayal is when he allows Abigail, John's partner and mother to his child Jack Marston, to be left behind when she's kidnapped by the Pinkertons. But Arthur, who by this point is really on death's doorstep, and Sadie rescue her, finding out in the process that Micah has been the one leading the Pinkertons right to them this whole time. Arthur and John ride off to confront Dutch and Micah. The Pinkertons are closing in on them the whole time and drive them all up the mountain. John being told to leave and be with Abigail because Arthur knows that whatever happens, he won't be coming back down from this mountain. Dutch had disappeared. Micah blindsides Arthur and they get into a fight. Micah is younger than Arthur and crucially not dying from TB, so he exploits this fact, taunting and goading a dying man, beating Arthur to a bloody pulp because he's too weak to stop him. But Arthur puts up a hell of a fight, with Dutch and Micah getting away and leaving Arthur to die on top of the mountain. You don't even get to see him get his comeuppance until the end of the epilogue chapter when John Marston finally hunts him down, years later and fights him, only for Dutch to finally shoot Micah himself. Dutch looks broken and haunted by his past, and it seems he could finally take no more, killing Micah in what is presumably an act of penance in his mind. But Micah was a dick right to the end, taunting, goading, fighting dirty, so when he does get killed, it is supremely satisfying to watch. I just wish Arthur hadn't had to die in the process. So that's my list. Thank you very much for listening. Did you agree with my choices, or would you have done them in a different order, or put different games in there entirely? Check out the description box for some special mentions as well, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for listening, and tatty bye.